We must make more noise about the Lobito Corridor. This is a big deal. A $10 billion US-funded, EU-funded railway project that connects the copper mines of the Congo to the international markets.
In light of President Joe Biden's recent visit to Angola, the discourse surrounding the true intentions behind the diplomatic mission has sparked debates and concerns. The focus on minerals like cobalt and copper, critical for the booming tech industry, and electric vehicles raises questions about the underlying motives driving U.S. interest in the region.
Biden is in Angola to push the rail project that would transport Congolese minerals to counter Beijing. Before I go any further, let's think about what is happening specifically in the Congo because of those minerals. The project would connect the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Zambia to Angola's Port Lobito, allowing the U.S. to exploit the region's vast minerals, resources including copper and cobalt. For the people in the back, just so we clear, when we talk about the G-side that's happening in the Congo, it's happening because of those minerals. So when we recognize the United States federal government is literally trying to help extract those minerals, they're also perpetuating the G-side in the Congo. Historically speaking, the ongoing plundering of resources from the DRC by the U.S. and Europe has led to decades of devastating war, poverty, and environmental degradation. This damn near exemplifies how there are no underdeveloped countries in Africa. They're only overexploited. In college, I read this book about how Europe is underdeveloped in Africa by Walter Rodney, and it was a great one. Within this book, Walter Rodney gets in how the dependence theory of Europe being able to create stability for themselves out of expensive instability for Africa, is done with the resources. Biden's choice of Angola is significant. He is the first United States president to visit the country, signaling a dramatic improvement between the relations of the two nations. But literally, those relations being improved is going to lead to exploitation of a lot of Angolan people and Congolese people. And literally, hold on, I want y'all to see the construction of this video. Once completed, the corridor will help transport those important minerals from resource-rich heart of Africa across to Europe and the U.S. And on my papa grave, this is the reason why they so fearful for this man right here, Ibrahim of Burkina Faso, because that's what he's trying to do. Make sure all the resources stay to him and his people and stop literally lining the pockets of European corporations. Which takes me back to Angola, because when I was in South Africa, what I learned is that the Dutch was literally taking Angolan enslaved people and taking them to South Africa to be able to build it up specifically in Cape Town. I also know here in the Americas, in Louisiana, we got the Angolan prison, the penitentiary, you know what I'm saying? It shows me that the Western world has always viewed the Angolan people as standing reserve for resources, standing reserve for labor. And we see in 2024 what they're trying to do. Angola is still key to the exploitation of Africa. It really shows me I could do me a deep dive on Angolan history because something is going on with the country and the legacy and the heritage. And I want to know what the Europeans see in the Angolans to make them always do this for like 500 years. Yeah, I know my motto, research over me, search and listen to this. Apart from oil, Angola is also rich in minerals, including cobalt and lithium, which are essential for making batteries for electric vehicles. So as the world becomes more dependent on electric vehicles and artificial intelligence, how much cobalt and lithium is needed and how much African blood must be spilled for you to get that out the ground? With the global focus moving more towards greener energy, including electric vehicles, the mines of Central Africa will become more and more attractive. The American shift to invest in infrastructure in the region comes therefore no surprise. Speaking of surprises, I wasn't caught off guard to learn that China, America, and a bunch of European countries is having a musical chair competition on who can extract the most African resources. Here's the fact right here. China already controls up to 80% of copper mines in the Democratic Congo, one of the world's largest producers of the mineral. Which takes me back to this book by Walter Rodney. The entire global north is implicated in this, the entire Western world, you feel me? When it comes to Africa, according to Rodney, exploiting its natural resources like rubber and minerals through brutal colonial practices, extracting wealth without reinvesting in the local community, and suppressing indigenous development to maintain their control, essentially prioritizes their own economic growth at the expense of African development. Think about it. Foreign entities like America and China are trying to build a railway to be able to transport minerals from one side of the continent to the other side of the continent. Meanwhile, no Africans can be benefit from that except for the hand cherry pick puppets that the Western world loves. You feel me? Education is elevation. We got to stay on what I'm saying.
Educator George Lee Jr.'s candid assessment underscores the notion that Biden's visit might primarily revolve around securing access to mineral resources, especially within the context of the ambitious Lobito Corridor project. The $5 billion initiative, a collaboration between the United States, the European Union, and Angola aims to bolster infrastructure connectivity by linking the mineral-rich Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia to Angola's port of Lobito through a substantial railway network.
Everyone has a plan for Africa except Africa. Biden in Angola. What's behind the last-ditch Africa trip? This is a historic first. No U.S. president has ever set foot on the Central African country of Angola until now, until this emergency visit. It is because of an infrastructure project that's called the Lobito Corridor, and we're going to break it down. The billion-dollar railway is driving Biden's last overseas trip. On his visit to Angola, the president will stress U.S. support for infrastructure aimed at countering Chinese influence in the region, in Central Africa, in the DRC. This is from the EU's website. The Lobito Corridor connects the southern regions of the DRC, northwestern Zambia, and Angola to regional and global trade markets via the port of Lobito, there on Angola's Atlantic coast. Let's see who came up with this brilliant idea. It is the first strategic economic corridor launched under the flagship G7 Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment in May 2023. The EU and the US released a joint statement teaming up to support the development of the corridor. So this railway project is the brainchild, is the master plan of the EU and the US over its control of Congo's natural resources, over its control of Africa's natural resources. It is a second scramble for Africa between the US, the EU, and China. It is all for this critical mineral that is found in Congo. But was Congo invited to the meeting, to the G7 meeting where this deal was taking place? Last I checked, neither Congo, nor Angola, nor Zambia are part of G7. So how come this infrastructure project is taking place, is happening on the continent without the input, without the significant input of any of these countries? Also, what kind of demands did these African governments put on the EU and the US to make sure that the slave conditions that are currently going on in these copper and cobalt mines don't persist? What kind of conditions have been put on the EU or the US to make sure that they clean up the environmental disaster that they've left behind already, that has been left behind by foreign multinational companies already in the DRC and in Zambia too? Backdoor deals have been made. Politicians have filled their pockets, and the people continue to suffer. Everyone has a plan for Africa, except Africa. Things have to change.
While infrastructure development can fuel economic growth and regional integration, concerns persist regarding the potential ramifications of intensified mineral extraction on Angola and the DRC. Lee's apprehension about hastened exploitation underscores broader anxieties about sustainable resource governance and equitable economic benefits for local populations. The geopolitical backdrop further complicates this narrative, as Angola's historical significance and strategic location have long attracted international interests. From Cold War proxy conflicts to contemporary economic rivalries, Angola's trajectory reflects an interplay of global powers vying for influence and resources. The shadow of past conflicts, including the proxy war between Moscow-backed MPLA and Washington-supported FNLA and UNITA, looms large over Angola's contemporary political landscape. Amidst this historical legacy, the competition between the United States and China for economic dominance in Africa adds another layer of complexity to Biden's visit.
We must make more noise about the Lobito Corridor. This is a big deal. A $10 billion US-funded, EU-funded railway project that connects the copper mines of the Congo to the international markets through the port of Lobito on Angola's Atlantic coast. That is the reason why President Joe Biden, just weeks away from stepping down from the presidency, is right now in Angola to secure this deal. This railway project is no different from the exploitation of the Congo by King Leopold back in the 19th century for Congo's rubber and ivory. This is the West maximizing its profits at the expense of African lives and at the expense of African soil. In a vile and shameless scramble for African resources, the EU and the US have teamed up to counter China's influence over Congolese mineral resources, and we must speak up about this. This project seeks to get these mineral resources out of the ground as quickly as possible for as cheap as possible. This railway project will exacerbate the already slave conditions in these mines, the environmental disaster that exists right now in Congo. This railway project is not going to be of any service to the local communities here. It will only be in service to the expansion of empire and neocolonialism.
China's substantial investments in Africa's mining industry, coupled with strategic partnerships in infrastructure development and resource extraction, pose a formidable challenge to Washington's ambitions in the region. As China solidifies its foothold in Angola's oil industry and secures key mining interests, the efficacy of U.S. efforts to counterbalance Beijing's influence remains uncertain. In navigating this intricate geopolitical terrain, it is imperative for the Biden administration to adopt a nuanced approach that balances economic interests with sustainable development goals, ensuring transparency, accountability, and equitable distribution of benefits from resource extraction will be crucial in fostering inclusive growth and mitigating the risks of resource curse scenarios. As Biden's agenda in Angola unfolds, stakeholders must closely monitor the outcomes of this visit to ascertain the extent to which economic partnerships align with principles of responsibility resource management. Stakeholders must closely monitor the outcomes of this visit to ascertain the extent to which economic partnerships align with principles of responsible resource management and equitable development.